girl with a preppy vibe. Came to the spot with a friend of mine. She caught my eye. From the beginning, I was hooked. I can't tell a lie. Fresh, dressed, and fly. I respect her mind. Some dude trying to impress, but looking goofy at the same time. He bugging, she looking. I'm going for mine. Confidently, I approach with that eye-to-eye contact. She smiling while adjusting her hair, so I smile back. Pretty girl, what's your name? She said, is that true? Cause if it is, your name perfect for you. My name handsome. She said your name fits you too. See, we was clicking, and after that, time just flew. Then that time came to talk to her pops. He gave his blessing, and then that mind frame I had was honoring and protecting. I knew she was the one when we met. I found my future girl, and no other woman compares to my girl. Yeah, I knew it from.
Hey y'all, welcome to the check-in. Okay, big news Monday. Yes, y'all. We have a lot to unpack, a lot to cover tonight. Yes, there has been so much going on between this weekend and now. It has been off the chain, y'all. We have El Mencho. We have things going on with AOC. We got Mr. Vince McMahon. Updates on Mar-a-Lago, Epstein, all of the things, y'all. So, today I work from home, so I'm still in my nice comfy clothes. It snowed this morning, and yes, y'all, I still got the tree up. The tree's gonna be here. It's creating the vibe for me. Okay. So anyway, y'all, let me know how your day was today. And in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and get into our first check-in, which is gonna be an update on the Mar-a-Lago situation. So if you recall on yesterday, we talked about how this young man ended up trying to get into Mar-a-Lago and they neutralized the threat. Okay. So they have an update for us. Let's get into it, y'all. Because let me tell you guys, I did not realize that the gentleman drove his vehicle onto the property. I thought he walked on. He drove his vehicle, y'all. So let's go ahead and get caught up.
So now what happened here? The FBI now investigating after an armed man was shot and killed on Sunday morning as he tried to enter President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. Details now from the Secret Service Sunday in Palm Beach.
Preliminary information indicates that the individual was armed with a shotgun and a possession of a gasoline canister. Agents and the deputy discharged their firearms to stop the threat. At this time, no law enforcement personnel were injured during the incident.
Okay.
We want to be clear, the President of the United States was not in the state of Florida. And this remains an active investigation by the FBI.
The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posting this in part. In the middle of the night while most Americans were asleep, the United States Secret Service acted quickly and decisively to neutralize a crazy person armed with a gun and a gas canister who intruded President Trump's home. Dana Marie McNichol now live with the latest Palm Beach, Florida on the follow-up. Dana Marie.
Okay.
Hi, good morning, Bill. Well, a 21-year-old from North Carolina traveled all the way down here to Florida. He used the north gate at Mar-a-Lago to get inside. Today, security remains high as the FBI is tracing his movements before the breach. Now, Martin's family, they reported him missing to a sheriff's department in North Carolina at 1:38 in the morning on Sunday. The timing of this report from his relatives is notable because, according to authorities, Martin entered Mar-a-Lago at 1:30 a.m. What communication his family had with him or even their knowledge about his plans is still unclear. His cousin told the Associated.
I am definitely interested in hearing more about why did they choose to report this young man at 1:30 a.m. as missing, and then he's going onto the property around that same time. Like, did they not recognize that he was gone well before 1:30 in the morning? So that's going to be something to look at when they have that detail available. Let's keep it going.
Press that Martin's behavior was shocking, that he came from a family of avid Trump supporters and was even afraid of guns. Now, deputies in Palm Beach shared a picture of the shotgun and gas canister they say Martin was holding. The FBI, now leading the investigation, are asking neighbors to look at their security camera for anything out of the ordinary. Former FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino says reacting to Martin's movements are critical.
Either got out of a car, that car had a license plate. He got out of an Uber, left a hotel room. Once you start to backtrack and build the video crime scene in reverse, and there's a large network of security cameras, private and public, down there, that's how you're going to get an ident.
And Martin's motives still remain unclear as President Trump and his family were not at Mar-a-Lago of the time. Secret Service Director Sean Curran, he's here in Florida now to help with this active investigation. Bill.
All right, Dana Marie, more to come on that. Certainly. Thank you. Live in Palm Beach, Florida. Dana?
For more on this, let's bring in former FBI investigator Bill Daley.
Let me say this, y'all. I'm just kind of floored as to how they're saying this young man came from a family of Trump supporters, but yet he done went to Mar-a-Lago with a pistol and a gas can. And you can only imagine what his intent was, right? So interested to find out a little bit more as to like what was his intent of going there then? Like, was it not to harm the president? Like, I'm just curious because he came from a family of Trump supporters. You know, they mentioned that for a reason. So let's keep it going.
For as secure a place as Mar-a-Lago is, of course, the president was not there. You do have to wonder about the situation there and the security in that area. What are your thoughts this morning as we understand that he drove his car through the north gate as another car was leaving? It's sort of like when you show up and you don't have your pass to get in the building, but somebody's coming out, so you sneak on in.
Right, right. And Dana, good to be with you. And yeah, just another stunning incident, how dangerous it is to be President Donald J. Trump. This is now the third incident directly attacking him and his property. And I would probably say, Dana, to your point, it appears at this point that the North Gate, which is where this individual came through, he would have piggybacked behind someone leaving. That's at least what was suggested in some earlier reports.
Right.
It's important for people to keep in mind that Mar-a-Lago, as much as it's the president and first lady's home, it also functions as the White House on weekends, on vacations. But thirdly, it's also an active club where people are members and people come and go. So we don't know whether the gate was open to allow a member who is departing or what the arrangement was. But it appears though he drove through, and at some point right after that, the Secret Service and the Sheriff's Department responded and took immediate action to kind of neutralize what they saw was a viable threat.
It does seem significant that his family immediately reported him missing, and Dana Marie just reported that it's unclear whether the family had any idea about his plans. Apparently, the cousin says it was a surprise to him, but to the person who made the call, who knows?
Exactly, Dana. And this is where the FBI comes into play, as the FBI will take the lead role in finding out not just what happened, but the who behind it. We now know a name. We want to know more about what may have led him to do this. Some of the reports coming from family members, as you just suggested in the earlier report, indicated somewhat of kind of a benign individual who really didn't seem to act out in any way in the past. In fact, I think a local North Carolina, police are saying that there was no criminal.
Well, let's think about it. First of all, I got a couple thoughts here. Number one, he drove onto the property. I don't know why in my mind I thought that he may have walked in through a gate. I didn't realize that he drove his vehicle onto the property, and what they call it when you piggyback, when somebody leaves, you trying to come in. Like, of course, they were gonna see that, right? Which goes back to what the gentleman said last night about, death by cop was maybe the intent, right? And then on top of that, Mar-a-Lago is a active club, like a country club, where people are coming and going. I find that interesting. They would have that as like the secondary White House, if you will, on the weekends when they're there, and you have people of the public having access to this space. That's quite interesting to me right there. And on another note, I want to mention they're saying how this person that went up to the Mar-a-Lago is this quiet, unsuspecting person. Well, I'm sure they said the same thing about the gentleman that took out Mr. Charlie Kirk and the one Mr. Luigi Mangione that took out the healthcare VIP person. No one suspected, right? So let's keep it going.
Records of note at all. So it's important to find out a bit more behind what kind of led him to this. As we've seen in other incidents, unfortunately, like the Charlie Kirk shooting, the killing of the United Healthcare executive, is that sometimes there are these kind of breadcrumbs or what behavioral scientists will call leakage that suggests there was something else going on here. You just don't know, Dana, with all this rhetoric that is out there. It's the vile rhetoric that we hear across the media about all kinds of stories, how it may affect a certain person, especially if they have a kind of a weak or some type of psychological impulse to them, where they may be kind of drawn into conspiracy theories or other things that sometimes aren't really seen by their family members, but maybe it will come out when you start looking at text messages or how we may be communicating with other people.
Bill, let me get you. We have a minute left, and I just want to have this time to ask you about the Pima County Sheriff's update on the Nancy Guthrie case. She is still missing. We are entering week 4. They released a note on Saturday saying there have been no changes to resources in this investigation. This will remain an active investigation until Nancy Guthrie is found or all leads are exhausted. We can put up the timeline for everybody to see here. We're entering the 4th week. I mean, it did take 6 weeks to try to track down what happened to the people who were the victims in the Idaho murder case. This is not a murder case. They still, as Savannah said last week, they still believe she is alive.
Okay, so they believe that Savannah, I'm sorry, they still believe that Miss Guthrie is alive. Okay, well, I'm glad they're keeping hope alive on that. Nothing really has changed from what it sounds like. Let's keep it going.
Conspiracy theories or other things that sometimes aren't really seen by their family members, but maybe it will come out when you start looking at text messages or how we may be communicating with other people.
Bill, let me get you. We have a minute left, and I just want to have this time to ask you about the Pima County Sheriff's update on the Nancy Guthrie case. She is still missing. We are entering week 4. They released a note on Saturday saying there have been no changes to resources in this investigation. This will remain an active investigation until Nancy Guthrie is found or all leads are exhausted. We can put up the timeline for everybody to see here. We're entering the 4th week. I mean, it did take 6 weeks to try to track down what happened to the people who were the victims in the Idaho murder case. This is not a murder case. They still, as Savannah said last week, they still believe she is alive. As this stands now, last word to you.
Yeah, there's still a lot of leads to follow up here. We have all the equipment or the paraphernalia the individual is wearing coming to the door. We have this DNA now. She's going to go through genealogical DNA testing. And plus, there's also kind of revisiting all the leads, is that we found in other past cases where redoing and revisiting.
So they were talking about the DNA testing last week, and I know the first database didn't prove anything to be, they didn't have any positive hits, but I was hoping that by now they would have had some type of update on any hits or leads, with these other databases, but I guess we'll find out in due time. But I mean, I am glad they're kind of keeping some things close hold, because if the people are still out there that have this woman or know where she is, you don't want to tip them off, right? So let's see what else they got to say on the subject.
Leads that maybe first were not on the top of the list where investigators were following up on. Leads that may have come in from people calling, sending in information. They need to go back through that. There could be that one kernel. There could be the kind of one golden nugget out there that's in those past leads that came across through the tip lines and other ways that need to be looked at.
Okay, Bill Daly, thank you so much. And I know that you're out on Long Island. Stay safe, as the storm is not finished with us yet. Thank you.
Will do.
Hey,
all right.
We have some breaking news now on more Epstein fallout in the UK. British police arrested former UK Ambassador Peter Mandelson as his misconduct probe plays out. This is over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. More accountability on that side of the pond. Our partners at the BBC starting the coverage.
The former UK ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson, has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in.
Now, you guys know that last week they arrested, I think it was Prince Andrew, in regards to potential interaction with Epstein. Let's keep it going.
Office and taken in for questioning. These are the latest images we have. They're wearing the glasses and the dark coat. Peter Mandelson leaving his house and getting into the back of that, what we presume is an unmarked police car. So they're the latest images of Peter Mandel, escorted from his home in central London there to an undisclosed police station. You may remember Lord Mandelson was sacked back in September last year after revelations emerged in the Jeffrey Epstein files regarding his ongoing relationship with the convicted paedophile and the alleged leaking of confidential government information while he was business secretary. Well, the BBC understands that he denies engaging in any criminal activity and that he was not motivated by financial gain.
All right, we'll continue following that story.
So, you're going to see other people that's going to be arrested, I guess, over the pond in regards to Epstein. But I did see where Prince Andrew was arrested in a separate case on suspicion of a similar offense related to his friendship with Epstein. He was released after 11 hours in custody while the police investigation continues. So we're going to see a lot of fallout from this whole Epstein debauchery. So, yes. So we got those updates. And then now you guys know that I am in the DMV area, that's, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, right? And I saw this video about this man that unalived his wife and his daughter. Okay. So let's get into that, y'all. This is so sad. I don't even I'm interested in finding out what could have caused him to do this. You see what I'm saying? And we have Porgy 209 in the house. Hey, welcome to the live stream. Let's get into this.
Chief Kevin Davis, he described this scene as a bloodbath. I've never had a chief describe a scene like that before. And it is just horrific, tragic what happened here because everyone involved here was related to one another. And there was a 1-year-old child inside the apartment when all of this took place. Fairfax County Police say that they got to the scene here around 5 o'clock this morning. This is the Margate Manor apartment complex. The apartment where all of this took place is shared by a couple in their 50s, their daughter and her husband, who are both in their 30s, and their 1-year-old son. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis says the father of that 1-year-old was actually outside cleaning off his car when he heard commotion inside the apartment. When he went inside, he told police he found his father-in-law stabbing his wife and her mother. The suspect eventually then turned that knife on the son-in-law. Chief Davis says when officers arrived, the suspect wouldn't drop the knife and an officer shot him.
Wow.
Our officer gave repeated commands, one after another, to this perpetrator, the father-in-law, to drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. Not only does he not drop the knife, but he still proceeds to stab the son-in-law.
And here's a look at that knife that police say was used in this attack. The chief described it as a long curved blade that resembled a meat cleaver. The son-in-law is still in the hospital. He's in grave condition this morning. According to the chief, the officer who shot the suspect has been on the force for a couple of years. He will be reassigned to another unit while the investigation is going on, and the body camera video from this incident should be released in about 30 days. We asked police what happened in the moments leading up to this violent attack. They told us that that is all under investigation. They say that they do need the public's help in this case. They say they're trying to learn more about this family. So if anybody knows who they are, they are asked to contact the Fairfax County Police. Yes, Erica, back to you.
It's just so much. And I'm sure it's a lot for the first responders who got there and tried to render aid as quickly as they could. This child now left in this horrible circumstance, Jessica Albert, following this development.
That's just so crazy. Like, this man done unalived.
Joining me here is
he unalived his wife and his daughter, and then attacked his son-in-law. And I just don't understand. Like, I don't know what that man may have thought when he saw that his father-in-law was attacking his wife, and then turned around and attacked him. And the police had to unalive him to get him to stop doing what he was doing. That is crazy. I mean, I would be interested to hear also, what led up to that, because the guy was outside clearing off his car. It snowed out here last night. So he's out there getting snow off the car, and he hear a commotion, and he go inside and he see this kind of a scene. They call it a bloodbath, y'all. My goodness. But let me tell y'all, we have an update regarding Rainer. So you remember this celebrity, him and his wife were unalive in their home, and I believe it was the son that did it. So he had his day in court today. So let's get into that.
Prosecutor for the case, Habib Balian. I'll give you a couple different update points. First, the case is on track. We have provided the bulk of discovery to defense counsel, and we are now waiting for the coroner's report. When that is provided to the district attorney's office, it will in turn be provided to defense counsel. The second point, this case is a death penalty eligible case. Along those lines, we take the process in which we determine whether or not the death penalty should be sought extremely seriously, and it goes through a very rigorous process. We will be looking at all aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and we have invited defense counsel to present to us both in writing and orally in a meeting any arguments that they would like to make in consideration for our going forward or not going forward with the death penalty.
Let me say this. I'm not well versed in how one determines if the death penalty should or should not be used. But I mean, this person, if found guilty, would have unalived his parents, right? I just don't understand the mechanics behind deciding if the death penalty should or should not be on the table. I know what Luigi Mangione, if I recall correctly, they took that off the table for him when he unalived that exec from the healthcare company. But I just don't know, y'all. This seems like a lot of thought going into this when this person, if found guilty, would have been found guilty of unaliving their own parents. I mean, what do you guys think? Are you guys struggling with this concept? We'll continue.
So that is an ongoing process. We will also, at that point, when we get all this information, it will be subject to not only a rigorous analysis, but many of the most experienced individuals in the DA's office with death penalty experience will be helping me evaluate that information. The third point with dates. Right now, the next date is April 29th for a preliminary hearing setting date. What will happen is that at that date, the judge has said it is 0 of 30 days. That translation, that means that within 30 days of that April 29th date, there will be a preliminary hearing unless additional time is sought by defense counsel, agreed to by the court, and the defendant agrees to also waive time. One can probably expect that there will be that additional time sought because of the volume of the discovery that will have to be gone through by defense counsel, by the fact that we're still waiting for the coroner's report, and by the fact that if defense counsel wants to seek any additional expert testimony, it will certainly take additional time. So that is the update on this case. Again, as we go through this process, we will provide you with more updates. But thank you very much today.
Has Mr. Reiner undergone any mental competency exams?
And I won't be answering any questions today. Thank you.
That was a good question, though.
Thank you.
The gentleman asked, had this man went through any mental health
All right, so we were just listening to Nathan Hochman, who is the Los Angeles County District Attorney, stating that he is not answering any questions, but we continue to follow the breaking news as Nick Reiner has pleaded not guilty to killing his parents, and we were showing this to you just moments ago.
So allegations and enhancements
we were actually able to see Nick Reiner in court. Let's play this.
April 29th as 0 of 30. April 29th, 2026 as a 0 of 30 calendar days? Yes. And may I take a waiver from your client at this time? Yes, sir. Mr. Reiner, you are entitled to a speedy preliminary hearing. That's a preliminary hearing within 10 court days and 60 calendar days of your arraignment. Your arraignment is today. Do you understand, waive and give up those rights so that your matter may be continued to April 29th, 2026 as 0 of 30 calendar days? with the understanding that your preliminary hearing may commence within 30 calendar days of April 29th?
Yes.
And does counsel join in that waiver?
I do.
The court finds that Mr. Reiner has made a knowing and intelligent waiver of his right to a speedy preliminary hearing within 10 court days of 60 calendar days, and that his counsel of record joins in that waiver. Defendant agrees that the next court date of April 29th, 2026 is a 0 of 30 calendar days. The matter is assigned to, for all purposes, by the supervising judge of the criminal master calendar. The matter is assigned to, for all purposes, to Judge Sam Oda in Department 108. Counsel reserve no bail?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's bail set at no bail. Anything further on this case?
Yes, for the record, Your Honor, people have turned over to the defense the large bulk of discovery. We are still awaiting word from the coroner's office that they've completed the autopsy report. As soon as we get it, we will turn it over from the defense, as well as any other discovery that comes in.
So I did want to share that with you. All of that happening just moments ago as we saw for the very first time Nick Reiner in court as he entered his not guilty plea to murdering his parents. And we were just hearing from the judge that there is no bail. Nick Reiner will remain behind bars. He is scheduled to reappear in court in April. This is a live look outside of the courthouse in Los Angeles County. We were just hearing from the district attorney, Nathan Hochman, and it's unclear as to whether we might be hearing any additional reaction, but we're going to keep a very close eye on this. And of course, we will bring that to you.
I have no words, y'all. I have no words for that. But yeah, I am gonna try to, keep abreast of what happens with this case, though, because I mean, I would like to know. I know he's saying that he's not guilty, but I mean, why? Why would you do this? We got Mr. Lou here saying, why is this thing in the way here? He's saying life be lifing. Yeah, it do, don't. Let me put it on the screen here. Yes, it do, don't it? Life be lifing. Yes. And welcome to the check-in. All right. So we're gonna transition over here to what's been popping today. It has been a whole lot going on over there in Mexico, y'all. They neutralized the threat of El Mencho, and the cartel has been turning things up, loose, and out. Okay. So I felt bad for the Americans who are over there that are pretty much stuck, right? So let me go ahead and get that going. But I got another comment here. We got Lou, we have Lou and you know it saying, yes, I hit the like button on my way in. Thank you. Yes. If you are here supporting the channel, please hit the like button and comment. That helps get the live stream pushed out in the algorithm. Thank you, sir. Let's get into El Mencho.
This is a Fox News alert. We're continuing to monitor the situation unfolding in Mexico, where the U.S. Embassy has put out a security alert for all American citizens to shelter in place. This comes amid reports of violence erupting in the state of Jalisco. Tourists at a resort in the city of Puerto Vallarta were told not to leave the resort, while photos and video shared with Fox News Digital capture billowing dark smoke clouding the skyline of the city. This frightening situation occurs after Mexican security forces say they killed one of the most notorious drug cartel leaders in their country, El Mencho, head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. All right, so this comes not just in a vacuum. It comes in context of President Trump declaring the cartels foreign terrorist organizations and then taking out Maduro. Would Mexico be doing this if it hadn't been for the pressure President Trump is putting on them?
I don't believe so. I mean, I don't know the domestic politics of Mexico in depth. I know that Mexico has, every leader we've seen in Mexico has tried to find some way to, I guess, live with these cartels, maybe out of fear, maybe out of being corrupt in bed with them. I'm not sure. But I think President Trump's made it clear that we're not going to stand for it. And they're just a little bit, listen, if Democrats want us to have an open border, we might can just jump across that border going in the other direction and take care of some of these folks. And so that's been the, rather than letting the cartels in, we're going to push the door, make it open the other way, and send some folks in down there. It's kind of been the threat with President Trump in this administration. We did see what happened in Venezuela, and I don't think Mexico is far off from that. I don't think we're going to try to overthrow the government, but these cartels aren't waging war. These cartels are waging war on us, not just Mexico. And for that reason, we have every right in the world to have an interest in them going away. And it seems like Mexico maybe feels empowered, maybe supported. I'm not sure what we're doing is in the shadows, but it looks like they're taking steps to correct that.
Yeah, I like that idea of open borders work both ways. That's very, very cool. Look, I forgot his name. He's
Mencho.
El Mencho, that's right. Convicted in 1994, spent 3 years in prison in the U.S. and was released. And he goes back and he's like flooding the country with fentanyl. Tommy, what's going on here where we have these people in jail and we release them and then they go back and with terrorists, they kill Americans, with drug cartel leaders, they go back and poison Americans. Why are we doing
We've got
this?
repeat offenders on the street of every major American city, right? This feels like a running narrative. We got to end it. I think President Trump has mentioned more than once that he is more than happy to assist with President Sheinbaum, if she so desires, in dealing with their cartel problem. Now, up until now, I don't think that she's necessarily given him the green light to do so. Maybe what's going on right now will change that. I certainly hope so. But I will also say this, just to the point on the Americans that are in Mexico being asked to shelter in place at their resorts. I can't imagine how terrifying that is right now because of what's going on. And we're seeing images all over social media. I mean, it looks like a war zone because it probably is. I would also just say this. I had a friend of mine who was murdered in Mexico in Playa del Carmen about 6 or 7 years ago, just down there on a bachelor trip or a birthday vacation, murdered in the streets and left there. Mexico, in a lot of places, is not safe for Americans. And I know a lot of Americans think if they're in a resort that everything is fine, nothing can possibly get to them there. Joey and I were talking off camera. Hey, listen, there are a lot of beautiful places in the United States of America that are warm and sunny, Florida being one of them, a heck of a lot safer. So perhaps Americans should consider that, especially with what's going on right now.
And the former Dutch West Indies, which are now the U.S. Virgin Islands.
There you go.
We bought them from the Dutch. So, Molly, just look at the record. President Trump.
Let me say this. I definitely plan on staying my behind right here in America for the time being, especially when you have all this going on. Like, you remember when they took the president out of Venezuela and people got stranded over there in the Caribbean. And now you got people stranded over there in Mexico because you just don't know what is happening around here. You on vacation and you wake up, oh, we're not bringing airplanes to the air because of this and this that took place. So yeah, Porgy 209 says crazy things going on all over the world. Yes, it is. You are absolutely right, ma'am. But yes, are you guys planning on doing any international travel? Like if you're based in the US, are you guys planning on going overseas somewhere on vacation? Give me your thoughts in the chat here. Me personally, I wanted to go to Amsterdam next month actually, but I'm going to step away from that for right now. Okay, I'm still a little bit local here, a little bit, in the States here, a little more stability needed for me to be going anywhere up out of here. So let's keep this going.
He got Soleimani. He got the Abbey Gate bomber. He got the Benghazi terrorists. He got Maduro. And now through pressure on the Mexican government, he got El Mencho. That's a heck of a record. If I was the Ayatollah Khamenei, would I be a little bit nervous?
Yeah, there was a $15 million bounty on El Mencho. So he's been out there among the most wanted men involved in these cartel activities for quite a long time. And of course, the great credit goes to the Mexican military here as well. And actually, as we're talking about Claudia Sheinbaum, the President Jillian Turner, our State Department anchor and reporter, just flagged that she put out a statement talking about how this did result in various blockades and other reactions, and also offering praise to the Mexican Army, the National Guard, the armed forces, which brings me back to what you brought up at the very beginning, Mark, where you talked about the pressure that President Trump, at the very beginning of this new second administration, put on not just Mexico, but on Canada in redefining what these cartels mean. broadly, that they're terrorist organizations, and kind of drawing and putting this pressure on through tariffs to a certain extent, which makes it interesting and perhaps notable in the Supreme Court's most recent decision. So we'll be seeing how this continues and how the pressure continues on these states. But as you mentioned, there have been these big successes, including reining in the fentanyl trade and reducing deaths here in America. So this perhaps is just one more part of that, and we'll see what's and obviously beyond that, a very dangerous situation still unfolding. A lot of Americans in precarious situations right at this moment.
Hey, Sean.
Okay. So on this next one, it kind of gives a little bit of insight as to when they took out Mencho, like, you know, there were other casualties besides just him, which I didn't realize that. But let's check that out.
An update on the violence in Mexico. The military there killed the country's most powerful drug lord.
We learned this morning dozens of Mexican National Guard members were also killed. Eyewitness News reporter David Gonzalez is live in our newsroom with the latest on this. David.
Good morning. Mexico's president is urging people to remain calm after violence exploded in parts of the country yesterday. People were asked to shelter in place. Now some U.S. citizens are stuck in Mexico waiting to come home. Chaos erupts in parts of Mexico after one of the world's most wanted drug lords is killed. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, died in a shootout with the Mexican military as they tried to capture him near Puerto Vallarta. New video posted online and verified by ABC News shows the military operation against El Mencho. Gunshots or explosions and helicopters can be heard near a wooded area next to a cabin complex where the cartel leader was hiding out. Jalisco New Generation cartel members responded by blocking roads and setting vehicles on fire. President Claudia Sheinbaum says 25 National Guard members were killed in attacks in the state of Jalisco. But Mexican authorities promise peace and security. Today, President Sheinbaum says more than 250 cartel roadblocks across 20 states have been cleared. She added there is greater calm as things go back to normal. Americans are being told to avoid travel until it is deemed safe.
You could see the fear in people's eyes. I mean, they were very, very, very concerned. We're all just under the shelter in place, told not to go anywhere, lock your doors, stay inside.
The U.S. assisted in the operation by providing information and intelligence, but the attempted capture of El Mencho was carried out by Mexican forces. And Mexican authorities say more than 30 cartel members were killed in this attack. Another 70 also have been arrested across the country. Live in the newsroom, David Gonzalez.
So that's kind of a good thing that they at least got some of these cartel members, you know, arrested. They said what, 70 arrested, 30 additional ones were unalived. So I guess, you know, she's making some progress and trying to, you know, make the country safer, right? So yeah. So I have another video that kind of gives a bit more insight as to, you know, the impact to the American travelers. So yeah, I would be terrified if I was in another country and you have this kind of activity happening where you have people like blowing up cars and doing all these things, like, and you can't get to where you want to get to, which is back to America. I would be terrified. I mean, I understand when they had the situation in Venezuela and people could not leave, but at least you were in a resort area where there wasn't anyone burning cars and setting up blockades and whatnot. It's a little bit different type of level. Okay.
And the alert desk is tracking the violence erupting in Mexico. Well, this after the country's most wanted cartel boss is killed. Places like Puerto Vallarta looking like a war zone. Take a look at some of the video here. Suspected gang members, they've been clapping back at Mexican leaders. They've been torching cars and buses. And you can see these clouds of black smoke are now being seen really across this popular resort town. It's right along Mexico's Pacific coast. So here's what we know right now. Mexico's military killed drug lord El Mencho, and they did have some help, some intelligence help, in fact, from the United States. Now at this hour, most roadblocks meant to stop the spreading violence has actually been cleared now. And this morning, the U.S. is warning American tourists to stay inside their hotels. Airlines, including American, have suspended flights heading to this area of Mexico. And this is where a U.S. tourist is following that advice to stay put. And this especially after seeing some of this violence firsthand.
We saw the people running down the streets, running from the flames and stuff and the fire, and we ran back to the hotel.
Well, he's not the only one. Tourists hoping to enjoy the ocean view instead are gazing at this military Black Hawk helicopter that's been circling above. Well, vehicles were burning just blocks away. Then in the distance, you could see some of that smoke. The violence stretching into central Mexico. That's where these buildings are destroyed. Businesses are clearly smashed into and then set on fire. We're also learning more about yesterday's raid on the Jalisco cartel. We now know some serious firepower was seized. This includes rocket launchers that could bring down airplanes and even destroy certain vehicles.
Crazy. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. You may have seen where AOC, out of New York, went to Munich, and she was asked some questions, and she had to pause, I would say, I guess, to come up with her response, but she's getting a lot of flack for that over the internet. So let's kind of get into that a little bit because, they're saying she's like the future of the Democratic Party, right? And, but she wasn't the most well versed, if you will, when it comes to answering these type of questions. So let's go ahead and get into that interview real quick. I want you to see what she was asked, and you can see how she responded, okay?
I think China is, of course, an ascendant global power, growing very quickly, acting in its own self-interest. And oftentimes in Washington, there's this frame between conflict and competition. I think sometimes, depending on what's happening, that rhetoric can get a little conflict-driven. And I think that it's really a question of competition, and to the governor's point, fair competition. But when I think about that, I think about how the United States, if you want to assert oneself as a global competitor, the kinds of things that one would do in order to really assert that position is investments in science and technology, which we are gutting our NIH, we are gutting our health science research, we are cutting the very things that make us a global power in that respect in terms of government and public funded research, which is what allows innovation in a more broad sense as opposed to privatized research. An ascendant global power would invest heavily in innovative energy solutions so that it could be sovereign in that respect. And the United States at this point, instead of expanding our energy mix, we are actively narrowing our energy mix to become increasingly more reliant on fossil fuels instead of, in contrast to what you see is happening in China. Yes, they burn a very large amount of fossil fuels, but they have also invested dramatically in wind and solar and in energy innovation. And so to me, I see this as a question of competition and, of course, of trade, to the governor's point. But we have to make sure that we are having, I think, a reflection and a reflective conversation about how are we positioning ourselves to continue to offer the world the best of what America has to offer.
And to all of you, and Congressman, I'll start with you, would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Ambassador?
Well, I mean, obviously that's...
So, y'all, that's how she answered the question regarding, Taiwan and whatnot. So how do you guys think that she did with answering the question? We got Bull Monkey here saying, good morning, peoples. Good morning, Mr. Bull Monkey. But yes, y'all, how do you guys think that she did with answering that question about Taiwan? Okay, so what I have next for y'all is we're going to talk about, we're going to see what President Trump and Mr. J.D. Vance had to say about how she answered the question while y'all think about that, okay? Let's get into it.
President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance both took shots at Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez during the Board of Peace meeting on Thursday.
This goes back to AOC's appearance at last weekend's Munich security conference, where she appeared to stumble in her response as to whether she would support sending U.S. troops to Taiwan in the event of an invasion from China. Let's watch that.
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States, and I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation.
And here was President Trump making fun of that moment during his speech on Thursday.
Here he go.
She was unable to answer a simple question. And she could have said, well, I'm studying it and I'll report back to you next week. You know, you can get away with that. But she just went, it's actually, I think it could be a career-ending answer, because for 25 years, anybody running against her, I think Susie is going to use that little piece of stuff. It was not good.
Later, J.D. Vance took the stage and brought up the incident again.
I knew exactly what I wanted to say, but then after the president said that I was so smart and that I didn't want to repeat our congresswoman who froze for 20 seconds over in Munich, now I'm tempted, sir, just to freeze for 20 seconds and just stare at the cameras, and maybe they'll say nice things about me like they do about Congresswoman Cortez.
They are a mess.
AOC fired back at Vance's comments, writing on X, "The only thing longer than my pause to think was their silence to his joke." Meanwhile, journalist Ross Barkan wrote a column for New York Magazine where he says AOC's stumble is a warning, that's a quote, to the left. The article reads, quote, "If Ocasio-Cortez wants to become more fluent on foreign policy, she'll have to think harder about these sorts of questions, as will the rest of the Democratic Party, which still must make a case for itself in 2028 and beyond. Right now, there are few genuinely sophisticated voices on the left when it comes to global affairs. It's not clear many other potential 2028 candidates would have delivered better answers than AOC, even if they may not have paused for so long. Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, and Gretchen Whitmer, are they ready to tell the American public that their neighbors, friends, and loved ones should die to keep Taiwan free?"
The article drew reactions and debates online from both left and right-wing commentators. Republican communicator Matt Whitlock writes, "The fact that some consider AOC to be the best current hope for the American left is quite jarring. On what substantive policy or issue set has she actually moved the ball forward instead of hurting her cause?"
And left-wing journalist Mehdi Hassan says, quote, "The stumble is a warning, but not in the way Ross thinks. It's a warning to everyone on the left, from the liberals in the center to the socialists on the far left. The right-wingers and their friends in the mainstream media will happily engage in a smear campaign and gotchas against Dems in a way they never do against the GOP."
Oh gosh, yeah, the mainstream media is not biased against conservatives. That's really enlightened, Mehdi Hassan.
Well, I think, what the criticism I will take from that is that President Trump has no foreign policy experience before 2017.
Okay.
Before he took office in 2017, no diplomatic experience, no military experience, but he ran our government and we accepted him and took the qualities he did have as this astute businessman, right?
He did get a lot of criticism for that lack of foreign policy experience.
And that's what I'm saying. We can be critical, but everyone seemingly was still able to get on board. It wasn't a smooth on board. I know Trump's run to the office was filled with a lot of friction of people that had been traditional Republicans for years. But my point is he made it all the way to the nomination and presidency without all that stuff. AOC is not even actually in the ring right now. She paused, but I think all the backlash against her shows that she's actually a real contender. The fact that she showed up there and the fact that everyone has something to say about it shows that she's an actual contender that they're taking seriously on a national stage. I mean, she's allowed, international stage, she's allowed to pause for a long time. I I'm not protecting her answer in any way. She stumbled, didn't seem like she had an answer. If you're going to go to an international convention, you better be prepared to answer questions about international affairs. That's one of the biggest questions on the table.
Right.
But we also have acted in a very provocative way that some people look at the way that we behaved towards Greenland, saying that we want to take over that space, the way that we behaved in Venezuela, removing Maduro, saying that we would, run the place in certain ways, and I'm paraphrasing. It's like, well, what incentive would Taiwan have to be afraid of doing anything if we're just moving about this world? I mean, would China have to avoid doing anything when the U.S. is just moving however they want to move? That's what people are saying, that we kind of are not following any rules. So why would they think that they need to follow?
Well, they already aren't following the rules. So, I mean.
So why? That's what I'm saying. Why would they, knowing how China is and seeing what the U.S. is doing without any repercussion?
Well, then maybe it would be a warning to them that they shouldn't get out over their skis and mess with their surrounding neighbors, because the U.S. clearly isn't afraid to take military action if people basically make bad decisions. We'll put it that way. But look, I think the problem here is there were a bunch of Democrats who went over to the Munich Security Conference because they wanted to counter Trump's foreign policy vision. And a huge mess of them gave these mealy-mouthed, uninformed answers about foreign policy that completely distracted from the message that they were trying to send, and led a lot of people questioning if any of them are properly prepared to run for president in 2028. And it's not just AOC, by the way. Gretchen Whitmer was asked a basic question: what does success look like in the Ukraine-Russia war? And she said, well, I'm not a foreign policy expert, so I guess I will pass this off to AOC. What?
Louis in my ear laughing.
and then AOC asked about strategic ambiguity, can't articulate it, says this is the U.S. policy. She didn't even say what this is. It was bad. And there was a New York Times article that came out. She called a New York Times reporter after this, blamed the right wing for the bad reviews as opposed to her own poor performance. It turned out she prepped for this meeting actually for months.
Not months.
She prepped for months, and this was what we got. Like, that's not a good sign. I'm getting Kamala 2.0.
But didn't you think that Marco Rubio went there to clean up J.D. Vance's mess? I mean, J.D. Vance had been there.
No, this was good cop, bad cop.
Well, that's what Robbie said, but I also think that good cop, bad cop, we are playing with our allies as if they're our adversaries. And that's the foreign policy
they haven't been very nice to us.
Well, that's the foreign policy coming out of our administration. Let's threaten Greenland. Let's berate the Ukrainian president in the Oval Office when Russia's really the agitator. Like, what policies are being laid forth by the administration that are so promising that wouldn't present an opportunity for Democrats to go over there and say something different? I mean, when you break down what AOC actually wanted to do besides the stutter versus what J.D. Vance was proposing. I mean, he wants to stay in NATO, but say, we're going to bully you guys into cooperating in a better way that works for us. She's saying that the global order and the way that we are running things right now is fueling authoritarianism. She wants to completely change that and provide more for the working class in America and start to break that structure down. So they have two wildly different interpretations of how to engage with the global or with our global allies. And I think that should be more of the conversation than if she stuttered.
Well, I mean, yes, that it should be the debate, but also if you're going over there to, show off your foreign policy, bona fides and chops, then you should be prepared to answer a basic question. But I mean, the point is that America's allies have taken advantage of us. They sit here and they throw massive tariffs on our industries and then get mad when we retaliate. They censor the free speech of Americans. They threaten American business owners that if they don't abide by their censorship regime, then they're going to throw them in prison. Sorry, but that's unacceptable. And America is giving the most to NATO in terms of finances, defense, military assistance. So we do get a bigger say in what happens there.
All right, we'll park it there.
President Trump says he wants to release government files related to aliens and UFOs. Some call them UAPs. We'll be right back after this.
Okay. Let me just say this. President Trump and Vice President Vance, they something else, okay? They are true trolls, right? We have Lou and it saying she should have just given a neutral political answer. That's kind of what Trump was alluding to. Antonio says, has she figured out that Venezuela isn't below the equator yet? The next video is going to have, I think, that reference in there. And then we have Bull Monkey. He always comes through with a word, y'all. Imagine defecating in your own pants and then questioning other people's suitability to stand on the world stage. Now, Antonio, I did see your comment because you were asking, well, hasn't everybody done had a shark at some point in their lives? I think I saw you put it down. But yes, y'all, that was her first time, on the world stage, her debut, right? So, and that was a question that she probably wasn't quite ready for. I wasn't expecting. I think she had went there for a particular purpose. When she did her first question we saw, she was very eloquent with that, very well-rounded with the response. But I think this one may have taken her by surprise, right? But I think at the end, after the starting and stopping, she just came back and said, well, I hope that we don't have to get to that point. Now I'm seeing y'all comments here. I'm getting distracted. So Antonio says, what grown adult hasn't pooped at some point? And then Will Monkey says, not recently. Lord. Okay, let me show y'all the next one. The next one is from The View, and they had some additional clips that I didn't have, so that's why I wanted to show it. And they had some commentary too, so let's get into it.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made her debut on the world stage this weekend at a summit in Munich, Germany. And the right is seizing on how she was a little verklempt coming out of the gate. Take a look.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
I never heard her speak very much. And they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer.
She was taking her 2028 bike out for a spin. She hit the embankment. She flipped head over heels and went all the way down the mountain. It's her fault.
Bringing me on your show, you showed me the most uncomfortable 20 seconds of television I've ever seen. Does anybody really believe that AOC has very thoughtful ideas about the global world order?
May I present to you the gaffer-in-chief?
Yes.
Did you just see Maduro? Venezuela, it's unbelievable. Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your... Sir, don't dignify it with a refutal. Refutal or a refutal? What the hell word would that be? I have this beautiful luxuriant hair, and I put stuff on, and I lather up, and then you turn on this crazy shower, and the thing drip. When I told them about Iceland, they loved me. Our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland.
So clearly, my mother used to say, don't spit up in the air, it comes back in your face. Okay? Check him out before you start attacking AOC, who, by the way, it sounded a little homina, but, compared to him, it's like Mensa.
Well, I think mispronouncing a word is totally different than not knowing your position on Taiwan. And what's important is how you recover from something. Trump, he has done things. He has continued on with his speech and then continued on to meet with world leaders. Yeah. So the recovery is what mattered, and the AOC just didn't have a recovery.
No, but he does it over and over again. How about the quantity of times?
Let's
point
out that, he is the president. Yeah. And he's been the president before.
For 25 years, it seems.
So my point is that I can take homina from Congress people and stuff. You don't have yourself together, that's on you. Can't take it from the guy who says he's the leader of the free world. It's harder to take
It's harder
No,
to take
I
and
understand that
accept from
wholeheartedly.
that. Yeah.
AOC, though, is also the Democrats' pick for the next election.
No,
No. I don't know that that's
You better
so.
tell that to
yeah.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Well,
See, I think Alexandria, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez has made it pretty clear that she's not running for president, but that what she was doing as a member of Congress, and I'm happy actually to see people in Congress doing something, doing some of their job, right? Because they do have oversight. And she is actually is on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, and she was appointed to the Energy, Health, and Oversight and Investigations Committees. And so she made it clear while she was in Munich that she was there to point out the rise of authoritarianism. Did I say that correctly? Yes.
Authoritarianism.
Authoritarianism.
So as you see, it happens to everybody.
Even women like Sunny cannot pronounce authoritarianism.
So she was there to highlight sort of that and the rise of fascism, and how when there is income inequality, you generally will have this barren class of aristocrats and billionaires running the United States and perhaps Latin America. I think that's why she was there and where she was going. And so that's a good reason to be there, even though she didn't necessarily have a great grasp on geopolitics.
Yeah, I think she could have handled the answer different. One of her biggest strengths is her ability to communicate. She harnesses an ability to debate and push back, but I don't think she handled this particular answer well. And although I wouldn't normally expect it, she represents the 14th congressional district, a population of 700,000. I don't assume everyone's going to be have the perfect answer for geopolitics.
Right.
But the one place I'm a little more critical of her is, considering that Ukraine and Russia have been in a war for 4 years, this is a conversation that comes up not just at this table and at work, but with my friends. Like, what would you do? What do you think? Do people step in? So I think there was a way that she could have handled that answer two ways. She could have started by saying, I know the focus is going to become this, so I'm going to come back to why I'm here, which is about inequality. That was her number one message. Or she could have said something like a lot of us think about Ukraine and Russia. No one wants U.S. troops on the ground. We always want that to be a last resort, but we cannot leave Taiwan to fight alone if something were to happen. It only empowers these nations to do it again. And that's coming from someone who doesn't do any politics, so I don't think it was a shining moment, but I think they were going to look for anything she said, because she is a target.
Well, as one who's stepped in much poo over the years, it's just a little message to everybody. None of us is perfect. And this does happen. People stumble.
Everyone, left,
everybody
right,
stumbles. Some stumble a little more than others, but that's okay. That's okay.
He didn't know the difference between Iceland and Greenland, and it was in the news for a week.
The AOC also said that Venezuela was below the equator.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was another gaffe. That was certainly
that's
another
the
gaffe.
point.
Yeah.
That's the point. They're not perfect. They're annoying as hell, because they want you to think they're perfect, but they're not.
I don't remember Obama making a lot of gaffes, though.
He made several.
Not many.
But the point is, everyone does it.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. Some more than others, but everyone does it.
Okay, y'all. So perhaps you've. Okay, so. Whew, there was a lot there. They showed us some clips from Mr. President Donald Trump. Gave some great perspective, And I do like how Whoopi said that at the end that, people make mistakes, people stumble every now and again. So I agree with that. What we got here in the comments, y'all, let's see. Now my screen would freeze up when I want to look at the comments. Okay. So we have Antonio saying, Lord help you if you were president and it happened, laugh out loud, just saying. Then we have Lou laughing, and he says she could have just said it's always the last resort, but sometimes we get stuck in the moment. And that's what someone just said on the panel with The View. And then Bull Monkey says, I didn't realize until now how similar Don and Married with Children's goof Al Bundy are. They present themselves in the same manner and share the same intellect. Now, you know what? I used to watch Married with Children on Sunday nights. And Al Bundy, he's something else. So I can kind of see what you're saying with that. But yeah, I mean, they have some good points. But I think, like she said, at the end of the day, people, stumble from time to time. But I do think that the recovery does matter as well. So hopefully, Miss AOC has learned from this, and and I think she's gonna prepare a little bit differently for any future debates or discussions or panels that she participates on. So we have Antonio saying, seems to me Whoopi is a little more understanding since she was mentioned in the files. Is that why she understanding? Now, y'all, I really do not watch The View. But when I was doing my little research, I came up with these clips where they were talking about it. I said, okay, got some good information here. So I don't know how she normally communicates on the show. But if you say so, I'm gonna have to go with it. Okay. So next up is I have a little clip from Miss AOC where she's kind of addressing all of the haters, if you will. So let's check this out. I'm gonna rewind it just a hot second because I want us to get the very beginning. So let's see if I can make that work.
Making a lot of gaffes, though.
He made several.
Not many.
But,
Not
but,
many.
Obama.
but the point is everyone does it.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. Some more than others, but everyone does it.
Perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks and doesn't care about the implications of his words before he speaks. If you think that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours of discourse about international affairs, I pause to think about one of the most sensitive geopolitical issues that currently exist on Earth, I'm afraid the issue's not my understanding, but rather the problem is perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks and doesn't care about the implications of his words before he speaks on matters like these. And in fact, if you actually look at what Trump said about this issue himself, he actually had the same, if not a worse, answer. So ask yourself, why do you think the issues turn to that? And I'm going to tell you, it's because, frankly, there are very few people who are actually willing to challenge the foreign policy establishment that continues to send people to war and bankrupt our country for the rich.
Okay, so she has spoken, y'all. Okay, she has spoken. Now, I don't know what Trump's original response was to that exact question. I did not look that up, but she's saying that, he didn't give a good answer either. And yeah, so I guess we're gonna see where this goes. Okay. So, but yeah, I do think Trump had a point in saying that, in future debates and future discussions, they're gonna bring this clip up of her with her pause. And let me just say this. I think if she would have paused and silenced and gave a more pensive type of look, opposed to the starting and stopping of the sentences, I think it would have probably not been as glaring, if that makes sense. So what do you guys think? Now we're gonna switch gears a little bit. You may remember a few weeks ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, we talked about the governor's dinner and whatnot, and how Governor Moore out of Maryland and the governor out of Colorado were not invited. So they had the governor's dinner and things last week, and the administration changed their mind at the last minute about their attendance. So let's get into that for a hot second.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
The White House breakfast brought all 50 governors together, including Maryland's Governor Wes Moore and Colorado's Governor Jared Polis. Both were disinvited to the annual event after the president insisted they were not worthy of being there. But at the last hour, the White House reversed course, with Governor Moore tweeting this morning, "I will attend today's business meeting with my colleagues at the White House, but let me be abundantly clear, I will not participate in political stunts."
I wasn't really surprised by it. In many ways,
it's a win-win for Wes Moore because he went into the lion's den.
Governor Moore has long blamed the president for many of Maryland's problems. Last week, the president took aim at the governor on social media, writing, "The foul-mouthed governor of Maryland who fraudulently stated that he received military medals, a lie, is doing a terrible job on the rebuilding of the Francis Scott Key Bridge and has allowed Baltimore to continue to be a crime disaster." At the State House this week, the tug-of-war had some lawmakers shaking their heads.
I think that it would be better for Maryland if Governor Moore kind of restrained himself a little bit from those things. I don't know President Trump personally. In my 10 years of observing him or so, he's not real big on restraint of those types of things. But I would hope that Governor Moore would recognize that millions of Marylanders depend on us having a reasonably good relationship with the federal government.
I guess we're going to be asking the press to leave, and that way we're going to talk very candidly.
The National Governors Association, which typically hosts this breakfast, pulled out after learning that 2 governors were no longer invited. But at the last hour, the White House changed course.
They were losing the PR battle, and when you had basically all the governors saying, if one's not invited, the other 49 aren't showing up, it wasn't going to make Trump look good.
But I'm here to focus on the people of my state. I am not going to spend a second talking about a petty attack that the President of the United States had.
Political analysts say Maryland had little to gain from the politics of this breakfast, but for the governor, it was a victory.
For Moore's profile, it only helps him in a way with voters because voters want to see a fight.
So I think it's interesting that the gentleman was saying that Wes Moore needs to be more restrained. I mean, in this particular instance where he's not invited to this dinner and whatnot, I mean, he's the vice president for that Governors Association. And so you don't have the vice president invited to the dinner. And then at the last minute, you didn't invite him and the guy from Colorado to come. So I do think there may have been a little bit of a little bit of cat and mouse here when it came to that. So I don't necessarily know if I would agree and say that he, is not showing restraint. I mean, he clearly stated at that press conference, hey, I'm not going to spend a second going back and forth. I'm here for the people of Maryland. So I think he has the same vision as what this man was just stating he should have, right? So the next thing is that they have some more commentary from that same conference where they kind of go into a little bit more insight about that Potomac River sewage situation. Like all this sewage, that was like a pipe leak, and all the sewage went into the Potomac River, and there was a little bit of debate about who owned the fix, who needed to pay to get it resolved, right? So we'll get into that. Before we do, we have Joseph in the house. Welcome to the live stream. Talk about I'm back. Well, we're glad to see you. All right. Let's go ahead and get into this issue about Potomac and whatnot.
Okay, Maryland Governor Wes Moore just spoke moments ago on the High Court's decision and other topics, and he just met with President Trump and other governors at the White House. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
Well, no, first, I stand by what I said about the Potomac sewage spill. That is a DC pipe on federal land. That had nothing to do with Maryland. So I stand by the fact that the president was not telling the truth when I was somehow being blamed for something that we had nothing to do with. But also, I am very clear that I don't have any intention of going back and forth with the President of the United States. That's not why I ran for governor. I ran for governor because I'm going to protect my people.
But did you tell him today? Did you say, why are you, in your words, lying? Did you ask him about it?
No, I did not have a conversation with the president about that. I was actually just had a conversation with the people and the cabinet secretaries on things like being able to build infrastructure. I had conversations with cabinet secretaries on being able to get disaster relief for Western Maryland. I had conversations with the housing secretary about how we can speed up building more housing inside of the state of Maryland. But I'm here to focus on the people of my state. I am not going to spend a second talking about a petty attack that the President of the United States had.
But Governor Moore, did you not have any? With also Bloomberg News here. The Supreme Court tariff ruling came down during the middle of the breakfast. Can you all, this is for no one in particular, but what was the vibe, the reaction in the room? We saw reports from the president saying it was a disgrace, but how long did he stay after that ruling came down? And do you feel that the ruling overshadowed what you all hoped to accomplish during the meeting today?
Yeah, that's why I was late. I was reading a terrible opinion. Unfortunately, the last job that I had, like Governor Stein, former Attorney General Stein, we got in the habit of having to read SCOTUS opinions. It's a terrible opinion. It really is. I mean, we forget the fact that the foreign interest, foreign affairs is directly a responsibility of the executive department. I think the president. I think it really did. It completely overshadowed, which in my opinion was getting ready to be a very productive meeting with the president. He kind of laid out a lot of great things. He talked about the economy. He talked about public safety. I mean, he went through a number of things. He offered help to every one of the governors there. Said, hey, any help that you need in your state. I mean, he was very gracious to Governor Hochul as well. And so again, I think that it was unfortunate that the Supreme Court came out with a bad ruling at that time, because I think we're going to have a great meeting.
I'd like to respond to that. This shows the beauty of governors. So, we like each other, but we don't have to agree. The Trump tariff tax hit New Yorkers hard. My rural communities have been hit hard by this. The farmers with additional costs for everything from their feed and their fertilizer that only comes from places like Canada and Ukraine. They have been struggling enormously for the last year, as well as the cost of so many products in our stores and groceries going up and up and up. So this is one of the reasons the New York State, with our Attorney General Tish James, was joined by other states in bringing this lawsuit to question the role of the president's power in this particular space. And I think the Supreme Court, many of whom are appointees by the president, sided with supporting the Constitution and doing what's right. So we support this decision and hope that we can continue to find ways to work together to drive down costs, not do the opposite as we saw tariffs do in our state.
Hold
on, Scott, I already asked a question. Caroline.
All right, you're listening to governors there. They were meeting with President Trump at the White House today when the Supreme Court's ruling on the president's sweeping tariffs came down. The Supreme Court ruled the president does not have the power to impose those tariffs.
So we already saw yesterday how the president went ahead and issued like a global tariff, right? So that he took care of that on Saturday. But yeah, so I think it's kind of cool that that the governors, like she said, although we may not agree, we like one another. So they were able to talk about the same issue with different perspective and still be professional and cordial. That's really good, I think. Now we got Bull Monkey here saying, honest question, if Trump had a heart attack and it was only available to see on pay-per-view, would you pay $5 to watch? I said no. He came back and said, laugh out loud, would you watch if I paid for you and we can watch it together with popcorn? That's it. You saying something now, okay? So Boo Monkey says, or that jumping jack toffee popcorn with the nuts in it. Oh, are you talking about Cracker Jacks? The Cracker Jack popcorn? I have not thought about that in probably a good decade or two. Okay. But yes, y'all, that is the latest that they had when it comes to the governor's stuff. But Governor Wes Moore did make the comment about how that was a pipe on federal land or whatever. So Trump did issue a executive order to get this fixed. Okay, so let me see. What is Antonio saying? Antonio is saying, I know it's off subject, but what's everyone's thought on the Trump accounts for the kids? Okay, we did have it on here a few weeks ago when he had Nicki Minaj that came on stage with him. That's a good question. So y'all chat about that. I'm going to show you guys this sewage thing, this executive order, and then we'll go from there.
in here as President Trump has signed a disaster declaration. This is all over that Potomac sewage spill. So this is just coming into our newsroom. Here's what we know. The declaration will allow the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, to step in and provide assistance after a sewer line collapsed in January and dumped millions of gallons of raw filth into the water, outlining the nation's capital. We do have a statement from FEMA that says the president's action authorizes FEMA to coordinate all disaster relief efforts to alleviate the hardship and suffering caused by the emergency on the local population and to provide appropriate assistance to save lives, to protect property, public health, and safety, and to lessen or avert the threat of a catastrophe. FEMA's assistance will cover the nation's capital and the areas in Maryland and Virginia where the District of Columbia has responsibilities. This all coming after Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser declared an emergency on Wednesday and requested that President Trump provide federal resources to help the city fight a sewage system leak that dumped 250 million gallons of raw sewage into the Potomac River in its early stages. The local declaration asked the president to issue a presidential emergency disaster declaration. The mayor's declaration followed days of the president criticizing the handling of the spill on Truth Social. Most of that criticism was focused on Maryland Governor Wes Moore, and that is that post there that President Trump had shared a bit earlier in the week. And this massive 72-inch pipeline known as the Potomac Interceptor ruptured on January 19th. The leak sent 250 million gallons of untreated sewage into the Potomac River, as I shared, just north of Washington in the first 5 days. DC Water, the local utility, has been working with other agencies to repair the leak and monitor the ecological impact on the river. The leak is primarily under control, although it could take months to repair the pipe fully. That pipeline was installed in the 1960s. The drinking water is safe, but people who use the Potomac River for recreation are being cautioned not to have direct contact with the water. So once again, this is just coming in here as we're learning President Trump approved a disaster declaration for Washington, D.C. over the Potomac River sewage disaster. And you are just taking a look at some of that footage here that we do have. For those who are just joining us, quickly just wanted to recap what exactly this means. That declaration will allow the Federal Emergency Management Agency, known as FEMA, to step in and provide assistance after this sewer line collapsed back in January, dumping millions of that raw filth into the water, outlining the nation's capital. So we did want to just share this here with you on Live Now from Fox. Any more developments or updates on this, we will bring it to you.
Okay. So, whew. Well, sounds like the governor was correct. And they went ahead on and, got the executive order, initiated so they can get that FEMA help and whatnot. So what do we have here in the comments? Okay, so Antonio, back to your question. I think the concept is okay. Because I think the concept was, having an account where children can get like $1,000, when they turn like 18 or something like that. And me personally, if I had kids, I would have had an account for them that I would have set up myself that I would fund. So when they get to a certain age, maybe like 24, 25, they'll have like a little nest egg. So I understand the concept of what they're doing with these Trump accounts. But I mean, me personally, I would have done that in my own way if I would have had kids of my own. So that's how I kind of see that. Joseph says, too little, too late. It's been more than a month. And I think you're talking about like them, having all that sewage in the Potomac River. Yeah, I was wondering, like, okay, so what is the fix? Like, are they able to like remove this sewage? Like, what happens now? You've had this large amount of filth, as she called it, dumped into the Potomac River. Like, what happens? I mean, at this point, who knows where it's at? I'm sure it's not contained. That Potomac River goes, a lot of places. Like, it flows and connects. So that raw material may be all over the place, It may be more diluted. I don't know. What y'all think? So we got Bull Monkey saying, Joseph, too little. how much more should they have had? I don't know. But yes, y'all. So yeah, I'm hoping I'm interested in seeing how they do the cleanup. Like they're monitoring, the what they call it? They're monitoring things within the flora and fauna, right? So is it just like, okay, well, it's already happened. We're just gonna now see if the fish are impacted, things like that. Like what happens next? So we'll see. So we have Antonio saying that's a failure by those city officials. They should be facing charges. Boomlucky says, I would imagine they would add enzymes to break it down. Oh yeah, because you're the guy with all the chemistry. Yes. Yes. Okay. That would be good. Okay, need to do something. Um, I remember seeing when it first happened, but I did not really pay a lot of attention. I don't live near the Potomac. Well, maybe I do. I just don't go I don't go nowhere near. I'm not an outdoor person. So yes. So anywho, y'all, the next thing we have here, I know y'all heard of Vince McMahon with WWE and how he recently went to court and got on probation, okay, for speeding. So I want you to also see the recently released footage of him speeding, okay? So let's go and get into that.
Former WWE CEO Vince McMahon was in court today. A judge granted him probation in his reckless driving case. That will allow charges against him to be dropped in 1 year's time. News 12 Connecticut's Marissa Alter reports from Stamford.
When Vince McMahon arrived at court, he was met by a group of fans. McMahon's attorney told me they were waiting here for at least an hour in hopes of getting a picture or an autograph.
Thank you.
WWE's Vince McMahon walked into Stamford Superior Court flanked by his security team. It came after he'd previously applied for a pretrial probation program called Accelerated Rehabilitation in connection with a three-car crash on July 24th. This is a picture of McMahon's Bentley right after the collision occurred on the Merritt Parkway in Westport.
It's alleged that he was swerving in and out of traffic, going in excess of 90 miles per hour.
The police report said McMahon collided with the back of a BMW, then the center median, with debris causing another car to crash. No one was hurt, but McMahon was charged with reckless driving and following too closely. The accident happened just hours before Hulk Hogan's death became public.
He's fully insured. He did send 2 apology notes out through counsel. Understands the seriousness of the case, understands he qualifies for the program, and assures the court this won't happen again.
The prosecution didn't object to the AR program, which allows first-time offenders charged with certain crimes to avoid a conviction. McMahon will have the case dismissed in 1 year as long as he stays out of trouble and completes the program.
Not every car accident is a crime. The judge recognized that there's a path here for dismissal, and that's what happened here. This was an accident.
As McMahon left, he didn't have a comment for reporters.
Can you get that photo with you? He's got the Gorilla Monsoon tie on. Any chance you can get the photo with you?
But he did stop for a few pictures and autographs with fans. In granting the program, the judge also said McMahon must make a $1,000 charitable contribution. In Stamford, Marissa Alter, News 12, Connecticut.
So let me catch up with the chat real fast, and then I'm gonna show you the footage from the body cam because he did the court appearance several months ago, but the footage of him driving just got released in the last day or so. Okay, so we have Joseph saying we have a useless bilb of yellow poop for a liter. The damage is done. Okay, to the water system. I got you. Antonio says, interesting thought. I've never seen hatred counter into anything peaceful. Antonio, you went real deep on me. So what are we talking about with that comment so I can make sure I'm tracking? Joseph says, asking for a bribe to reduce his sentence. Okay. So Bull Monkey says reckless driving in Denmark equals mandatory confiscation of the vehicle, 21 days imprisonment, and a hefty fine. Bull Monkey then clarifies confiscation of vehicle and disposal, even if the vehicle doesn't belong to the driver. Now that's tough right there. Confiscation and disposal. My goodness. So y'all, I want you guys to see how this man was driving. And listen to the excuse he gives to the policeman when he asked him why was he driving so fast. Get into that. Y'all see this?
You need an ambulance?
No, I don't.
All right. Why were you driving over 100 miles an hour?
It's my granddaughter's birthday. I got to get this the next exit.
Right. Did you see me trying to catch up to you behind you?
I didn't see that. I saw lights, but it didn't look normal.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up to you, and you keep taking off.
Oh, no. I'm not trying to outrun you.
I know. I understand that, but that's why I was very confused. All right? Because it wasn't like you were running. It was just like you almost hit, I think, 115 miles an hour. All right? And then you just hit someone because you weren't paying attention. Were you looking at your phone?
No, I'm trying to drive. No, I'm not looking at my phone.
The person was right in front of you. There's got to be a reason you hit him.
No. I haven't been driving my car in God knows how long.
All right. It was right in front of you. You went straight at it at 100 miles an hour. I'm just making sure you're not having a medical condition or anything.
I don't think
Do you need an ambulance?
No, fuck.
All right. Is this your registration? Is your license in here?
No, it's in my pocket.
All right.
I haven't driven this car in quite some time.
It's fast, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, too fast.
Yeah, I saw that right there. How that man was ducking and dodging and weaving and clipped that car, and another car ended up getting hit from the debris. And this man ended up going into that courtroom talking about he want to be on probation and go to a program. What y'all think? Let me go to the comments here. So I saw Bull Monkey said breathalyzed. Yeah, I don't think they did that from what I could tell. I don't think they did that at all. And I feel like he was close enough to him to where he could have smelled anything that might have been on the breath, right? But yeah. So we got Antonio saying, talking about our user's blub of yellow poop comment is what I referred to, ma'am. Got you. So Lou says Vince was out there wilding. Yes, he was in that very, very fast car. It was a nice car, Bentley. That Bentley totaled now, sir. Your granddaughter probably would have appreciated if you just gave her the Bentley. Okay, that was his excuse for why he was doing all that. And I mean, the man says, "What were you texting?" He was just trying to find a reason to explain why this man was driving like that. Couldn't get there. So Antonio says Vince has always been a piece of work. Yes, he has been. Joseph says running away. I guess so. He also said, where is the field sobriety test? They didn't give him one. They did not get this man a test, to my knowledge. and then they're gonna let him be put on some type of probation and go to class. Okay. So y'all, what do y'all think about these topics today? What did you guys resonate with here the most? I think the most interesting one would for me would have been the most interesting topic. All of them was interesting though. They're all so different. But I guess Mexico, because I just would be just out of my mind if I was over there and they had all that stuff going on. People burning up cars and blocking stuff like that. But anyway, y'all, if you catch the replay, put something in the comments for me. Let me know that you came through on the back end. And all right, y'all. So what else y'all got going on in here? Because it snowed here today. We got snow on the ground. But I gotta go into the office tomorrow, y'all. So if y'all have anything else, just know I'll be back Wednesday with the check-in, 7:15 Eastern time PM. So come back to see me and I will get it scheduled and everything. And with that, you all have a good night. Stay warm and stay safe. Bye.